The chief guest at this year's Republic Day celebrations is Indonesian President Mr. Prabowo Subianto. Prabowo Subianto is going to be accompanied by a high-powered business delegation. This business delegation led by Mr. Anindya Novyan Bakrie, chairman of the Indonesia Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Now, Mr. Bakrie is also the CEO of Bakrie Brothers, a large conglomerate in Indonesia with interests in infrastructure, mining, you've got green energy, real estate, amongst others. Mr. Bakrie, he spoke exclusively with News9's international editor Ramakrishnan Sridharan about the significance of President Subianto's visit and what this visit means for the India-Indonesia relations going forward. Listen in to this exclusive conversation.
Mr. Bakrie, you've just come from a lunch where the Indian Prime Minister was hosting your president, President Prabowo. It's very apparent from this visit of your president that India and Indonesia want to take the relationship to a higher strategic level. So what are some of the key areas where you think this relationship is now going to be strengthened along?
Our president, for example, mentioned about the history that I think the first chief guest on Republic Day in the past was our first president, President Sukarno. So to have President Prabowo become another chief guest, I would say 73 years later, that's something that's quite wonderful. And then Prime Minister Modi also mentioned about the cultural heritage all the way to the Borobudur temple and now getting to Prambanan temple. That's a nice soft touch that not every country can talk about. It is not by itself in economic cooperation successful, but it is certainly a good modalities that we have between the two countries. So the areas that they are talking about, it started with cultural defense, but in the business sector, we spoke also in the CEO forum this morning about manufacture, technology, pharmaceutical, healthcare, and then agriculture, and yeah, those are the things that we spoke about a lot.
Right. So I believe your Indonesian Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Kadin, is also tying up with CCI to focus on 5 critical sectors.
That's right.
So can you tell us more about this partnership in these 5 sectors?
The idea is that, look, it's good that we come when the leaders are meeting, but I think it is even better to have follow-up meetings and manage like a project management office. Because I know we may want to talk about this, but we came from Davos just last night. They talk about rebuilding trust, reimagining growth, finding talents, intelligence era. All of these things actually happen here in India and Indonesia. So, and you know, we're all excited. Not many countries can say that 2025 we will grow 5-6%. I mean, we're going to grow 5%. India maybe 6%. So that's something that we are very lucky. Now we need to think about how to collaborate more, how to make the trade not only even bigger, but I think even smarter between the two countries, even smarter enough so that we can collaborate to serve the world. The collaboration between CCI and Kadin should also focus on building human capital, upskilling, because that's one thing that India can do at scale.
Right. So you're also talking of a partnership in the capital markets between the two countries. So what sort of a partnership is that? Is that looking at bringing more investment into both Indonesia and India? How is that going to work?
Thank you for bringing that up. So the last 5 to 6 years, India has grown in terms of asset under management from $200,000 to maybe 1.2, 1.3 trillion US dollars. That's a lot of asset under management. So one, we can learn how to build your internal capability for capital market, which is helpful for capital raising, exit strategy, and many other things. But what's important thing also is how Indian customers can invest in Indonesia, and Indonesia can be open also to the Indian investors as to what are the opportunities. Because a lot of things that you see over here are happening in Indonesia. So it is not something foreign for Indian investors.
Right. So one of the reasons why India and Indonesia are natural strategic partners because of the rich history that we share together, the common trajectory that we have as countries in terms of our value system, our people, our approach to global policies. And India is also the fastest growing large market. So business groups like yours and the Kadin team, which is here with you, how exactly do they intend to play the Indian opportunity? Are they looking at investments? Because right now, investments from Indonesia aren't that much in India.
I think first, one of the big discussions this morning is that the Indian side would like to do more with Indonesia in terms of exporting. And both sides want to also invest in the opposite side, right? What, for example, Indonesia would like to learn from India, I think we spoke a little bit about it in terms of the health sector, education sector, energy transition. I think I forgot to mention that is a big thing here. Now, it's getting harder to get human capital just right off the bat from India, because India is also growing sometimes even faster, in economy even bigger. But I think to have I would say the business model, the concept and the structure of how India has been upskilling their human resource is something that Indonesia really needs to get. And also number two, how the startup market is ripe and open. People do take risks, being very entrepreneurial. That is also another thing that we need to learn from India. Because if people want to become entrepreneurs, there will be more jobs creation, other than a lot of companies do well and employ more. And I think if all of them are competitive in the world-class level, I think Indonesia should be able to, fuel the growth, because we have the ingredients. We have the critical minerals under the ground.
Exactly. I was going to ask you about that. That India is a mineral-rich nation, critical mineral-rich nation, apart from coal, and but how do you make sure that one or two countries don't end up monopolizing your resources? So what are your thoughts on that?
I think Indonesia is very clear. We want to be open for business with everybody. Also, it makes sense, right? You don't want to put all your eggs in one basket. But now, with this geopolitical recession, I think, going on in the last a couple of years, and especially in the last 1 week, we see that it may not subside anytime soon. I think the relationship between Indonesia and India, very important for both parties. I think
True.
India needs a lot of the resources that Indonesia has, but Indonesia doesn't want to just export the resources raw. We want to process it. On the other hand, we also look at that great big market in the US, right?
Right.
I think both of us, I believe, are still working on the free trade agreement, right? Maybe, we can compare notes to do that. And plus, Indonesia just joined BRICS along with India. India is a big promoter of that. I think we're going to have similar challenges and opportunities. So I think that's where the two countries can work together very closely. Yeah.
So you touched upon two things earlier, which you talked about India's, IT success, and also of recent note, which has now become a case study, is our success with the digital public infrastructure. For example, UPI, which is like something which has taken the world by storm. How do you think Indonesia as a country can leverage this, the DPI that India has already built, and also the talent pool that's available, especially given that the environment now in the US, which has been the traditional destination for Indian talent, is probably going to become a little constricted. So would you want to tap into this talent base and get them over to Indonesia to develop some of your own startups which can do these things?
I will give you my personal anecdotes. About 15 years ago, I used to come here because I was focusing so much on telecom sector as well as media sector. Purposefully came here to recruit a lot of Indian talents because they have seen this before. They were like 3-4 years ahead of us. I think Indonesia will continue to try to work with Indian talents and also learn how India can scale up quickly in building the digital infrastructure and to a certain extent also energy transition infrastructure.
Right. So now speaking purely as the CEO of Bakrie Group, do you see opportunity for manufacturing some of the things that you do in India? Because the government of India has really rolled out the red carpet with a lot of new policies to make in India for the world, not just for India, but for the world. So do you see any areas where you want to come in as Bakrie Group and then maybe invest?
I think that's something really interesting and opens my eyes even more, especially at this visit. Make in India is a good positioning, really, because you have the talents and you have the digital infrastructure and people know about India and what Indonesia can bring to the table is the natural resources, the ingredients that we talk about. So I can imagine maybe you can process battery materials, for example, in Indonesia using green energy that we learn how to do at scale from the Indians, and then we can go up the value chain halfway and then finish at the other half in India, and then being able to access also Indian market and also the world. So imagine those type of scenarios can happen in many single downstreaming for Indonesia.
Right. You mentioned that you were in Davos. So when you talk to the CEOs there, obviously there's a public narration that comes out. But in private, what are CEOs really worried about going into 2025 and beyond? So what are the big things that they're worried about?
So at the highest level, number one, they have to adapt. They have to adapt and get used to this. I know they say they have seen President Trump era 2016, 2020, but this is a new era. This is 2.0. There are things that actually get better. There are things that you just don't know. So adapting to all of this global geopolitical conditions is something that you just have to do. The second thing, you also have to still have conviction in whatever you want to do, right? Because trying to balance between adaptation and conviction is essentially what the leaders need to do, right? And lastly, I think they are talking about collaboration. They take it to one more extent, collaboration in intelligent age, right? With AI, I think we live in an era where nothing is pretty much impossible, right? If you know how to use it well.
Right. So one of the things that people are looking at very closely is the tariff war that might break out because of the rhetoric that's coming from President Trump. Now, the big fight is obviously going to be between the US and China, but there will be countries like India, Indonesia that get caught in the middle. Yeah. So how do you think businesses like yours or countries like yours can navigate this, the fight that may happen?
Yeah, I think Indonesia and to a certain extent also India, right? We have been able to maneuver this China plus one strategy, right? I think a lot of multinational companies, even the ones in China, want to have China plus one strategy. And Indonesia as a place where you have a lot of people, not 1.4 billion people, but 285 million is a lot of people. The natural resources that we have is plenty. And plus also, people see this as a place that can actually be a leader in decarbonization story because of the biodiversity that we have, whether peatlands, mangroves, forest, and whatnot. So I think people would like to relocate to Indonesia for all those reasons. And Indonesia would also be very happy to continue to supply to the West, especially to the US, because it's the biggest market still in the world.
Right.
And I think the US will grow even more with the America First strategy, while a lot of other regions, whether China and Europe, will slow down a little bit, consolidate, whatever. But I think Indonesia and India are the two countries that actually support the growth of the world this year.
So, Mr. Bakrie, AI is probably going to be the next big race that countries are going to fight. What is the scope you see for Indonesia and India to collaborate on the AI front?
A lot, because I think the competition is not only to build the technology. I think you have, people with higher budget, higher amount of engineers that do that, but on application of this AI is what's important. Now, I think the biggest thing AI can do for India and Indonesia are to solve social problems, right? Whether that's about health, whether that's about education, whether that's about philanthropy, right? For example, Indonesia is embarking on the free meal program, right? Now, both sides are growing, knowing that we need to give welfare to everybody in Indonesia or in India, right? And I think with AI, we can leapfrog that, especially on the application. Yeah.
Right. Mr. Bakrie, thank you so much for speaking with News 9 Live.
Thank you very much.